I'm sending this to your little blog because I don't know who else would even read it without trying to turn it into a workplace complaint. I'm not trying to make it sound spooky. I'm trying to write down what happened in a way that might help somebody else, or at least prove I'm not the only one who noticed. Last winter, I took a temp janitor job at a city bus station downtown. I was broke, behind on rent, and the staffing agency told me the station needed overnight sanitation coverage, and it was steady hours. I wasn't picky. I've cleaned offices, grocery stores, a couple gyms. A bathroom is a bathroom. The station was old, low ceilings, fluorescent lights that buzzed and made everything look gray. The staff areas were narrow corridors with doors that never shut right. On my first shift, the supervisor, a tired guy named Manny, walked me through the supply closet and the restrooms. He wasn't mean, just in a hurry. He pointed at a small stand-up kiosk by the maintenance door, like a check-in tablet bolted to a pole. Above it was a laminated sign with a cartoon smiley face and the words, "Smile Log." Manny said the contract with the transit authority required it. The process was simple on paper. Every shift, I was supposed to clean the men's and women's restrooms, then go to the kiosk and sign off with a smile. That meant I typed my employee badge number on the screen, selected which restroom, and pressed a big green button that said, "Confirm clean." Then the kiosk printed a thin receipt that I had to initial and drop into a clear plastic box on the wall. Manny said they reviewed the box weekly, and it kept the station from getting fined. I asked him what the smile part meant. Manny said, "Just do it. If you don't log it, payroll holds the shift." Like it was nothing. The first couple nights were normal. The restrooms were gross, but not unusual for a bus station. The worst part was the smell that never really left no matter how much disinfectant you used. I cleaned with what they gave me: sanitizer, bleach tabs, a mop, and paper towels. I restocked, wiped down the sinks, scrubbed the toilets, cleaned the mirrors. I did it slow because I didn't want trouble. The first odd thing happened when I went to the kiosk after cleaning the women's restroom. I typed my badge and hit Confirm Clean. The screen flashed a check mark and printed the receipt. I glanced at it, mostly out of habit. It had the restroom name, my badge, and a timestamp. The timestamp said I confirmed the women's restroom clean earlier than I had even clocked in. I thought it was a glitch, like the kiosk's time was wrong. I took the receipt to Manny and showed him. He barely looked. He said the kiosk syncs to the station network and sometimes it's off, and told me to throw it in the box anyway. The next night I paid attention. I clocked in, checked my phone time against the wall clock in the employee hallway, then cleaned the men's restroom first. The men's restroom had 2 stalls, a urinal wall, and a sink counter with cracked laminate. I scrubbed the floor around the stalls and the base of the urinals where it always got sticky. When I was done, it looked as clean as it could. I went straight to the kiosk. Before I touched anything, the screen already showed my name like I had logged in, and a status line under it said, "Smile Log Complete." The green Confirm button was grayed out. It had a little line of text that said, "Thank you for keeping our guests safe." I hadn't touched the kiosk. I hadn't typed my badge. I just stood there with the rubber gloves on, staring at the screen. Then the printer under the screen whirred and spit out a receipt by itself. I pulled it. It said I had confirmed the men's restroom clean at a time that was earlier than when I started scrubbing. That was the first time I felt my stomach drop. Not like fear exactly, more like realizing something was going to be blamed on me. I went back and checked the men's restroom again, thinking maybe someone had gone in behind me and made a mess, and this was the station's way of pushing liability. That's when I saw the grime. It wasn't random mess. It was the same pattern in the same places like it had been painted back on. A dark smear on the stall door at hand height. A crescent of dried residue under the rim of the toilet. a footprint on the tile in front of the sink that was too clear to be from normal traffic. It was like a before photo reappearing over my after. The smell came back with it, fast, like someone opened a bag of old trash. I cleaned it again. I did a quick wipe and another scrub because I didn't have time to redo the whole thing. I used more disinfectant than normal. When I was done the second time, the grime was gone. I checked the kiosk. It still showed smile log complete, like I was done for the night. I started keeping notes in a little pocket notebook. Nothing fancy, just what I did and when. I wrote down when I started the men's restroom, when I finished, when I saw the receipt print. The kiosk always recorded it earlier, not just a little earlier. Sometimes it was so early it would have meant I confirmed clean while I was still in the supply closet filling the mop bucket. After a few shifts, I tried to game it. I went to the kiosk first before cleaning anything to see if it would let me confirm. The screen already said I had completed both restrooms. I stood there and waited, hands off. Another receipt printed by itself, one for each restroom, and both were stamped earlier than my arrival. Then I cleaned anyway, because what else was I going to do? The grime became more specific. It wasn't just general filth. It started showing up in what I can only describe as repeated marks, like an instruction sheet in dirt. 3 fingertip swipes on the mirror, always in the same place. A line of residue along the sink edge that looked like someone dragged a wet string across it. A smear on the inside of the restroom door, right where you'd push to exit. I tried different cleaners. I used bleach tabs. I used the heavy degreaser. I used hot water until the mop bucket steamed. The marks would disappear and then return, usually after the kiosk printed a receipt. I don't know how those were connected, but the timing lined up too often to ignore. I asked Manny again, more direct. I told him the kiosk was logging me in and printing receipts without me, and the restrooms were getting dirty again right after. Manny got annoyed. He said the station had metrics and the log was required, and he didn't want to hear about bathroom philosophy. He said if the kiosk said it was complete, I should be grateful because it saved time. He told me to stop making extra work. The trouble was, it didn't save time. It made it worse, because the grime coming back meant the restrooms were never actually clean. And the receipts in the box meant, on paper, I was certifying they were clean at times when I wasn't even in the building yet. I took pictures with my phone. The station cameras were pointed at the entrances, but I didn't trust them. I got shots of the grime before and after. I got a shot of a receipt with the timestamp. I got a shot of the kiosk screen that showed my name while my badge was still in my pocket. One night I tried an experiment. I cleaned the women's restroom completely and then blocked the door with a closed for cleaning sign and a mop bucket in front of it, like a poor man's barrier. I stood in the hallway where I could see the door without being obvious. Nobody went in. I watched. The fluorescent light inside the restroom flickered through the gap under the door. When I went back in after a while, the grime was back in the same exact pattern, and the air was stale, like the place had been shut up for days. The mop bucket I had used was still there, and the water was still warm. The only change was the mirror. In the mirror, the 3 fingertip swipes were there, but now they curved upward at the ends like a crude smile. I wiped it off hard until the glass squeaked. I left the restroom and went straight to the kiosk. It printed a receipt without me touching it. The receipt was for the women's restroom, and the timestamp was earlier than when I had even put up the closed sign. After that, I started feeling watched, but not in the normal way you feel in a public building at night. I mean watched by the system itself, like it knew what I was trying to do. If I lingered in a restroom too long, the kiosk would print the receipt while I was still inside, and when I came out, it would already say, "Smile log complete." The next escalation was the requirement to initial the receipts. Manny started checking the box more often. He pulled me aside and said my initials were inconsistent. He put the receipts on the little break table and tapped them. The ones that printed by themselves had my name, my badge, and the stamp time, but the line for initials was blank. Manny told me I needed to initial every receipt, every shift, no exceptions, because audits. I told him I couldn't initial a receipt that printed before I cleaned. Manny stared at me and said, "Then clean faster." He said if I missed another one, I'd be taken off the schedule, so I started initialing them. That's the part I can't get past. By initialing, I was agreeing to the times, even though I knew they were wrong. The day after I started initialing consistently, the grime stopped waiting until after the kiosk printed. It started appearing while I was cleaning. I'd wipe a stall door and turn to rinse the rag, and when I turned back, the smear would be there again, still wet like it had just been made. I'd mop the floor and see a footprint appear inside the wet shine, perfectly edged. Like someone stepped and lifted straight up. I never saw a person. I never heard a stall door open. There were no footsteps behind me. The station was quiet except for buses idling outside and the occasional announcement over the speaker. One night, the kiosk printed extra receipts, not just one per restroom. It kept printing, thin paper curling onto the floor. Each one had my name and badge, and each had a different timestamp, marching earlier and earlier, like it was backing up through the night and then into the evening before my shift. The screen stayed on. "Thank you for keeping our guests safe." The confirm button never came back. I gathered the receipts and read them in the maintenance hallway under the flickering light. The last one had a timestamp from before I even took the job. I didn't put those in the box. I folded them and took them home. That was a mistake. I found out the system didn't like missing paper. The next shift, Manny was waiting by the kiosk. He had the box open and he was counting. He said the receipts didn't match the expected stack. He asked me if I was taking them. I lied and said the printer must have jammed and eaten some. Manny told me jams are reported automatically, and he hadn't gotten an alert. He made me stand there while he watched me log the restrooms, except I couldn't log them because it was already completed. Manny told me to type my badge anyway. I held my badge up and didn't even touch it to the scanner. The kiosk beeped like it read it. My name came up. Manny frowned. The printer spit out a receipt with a timestamp earlier than the start of my shift. Manny looked at it longer than he ever had. He didn't say it was fine. He didn't say it was a glitch. He just told me to initial it and get to work. I initialed it. That night the grime came back so fast I couldn't keep up. I would finish one restroom and the other would revert. I'd wipe the sinks and the residue line would form again along the edge in the same place. The smile on the mirror came back even after I used glass cleaner and paper towels until my hands cramped. I started leaving the smiles. That sounds bad, but I was trying to see if it made a difference. If I didn't erase the mirror marks, the rest of the grime was slower to return. If I erased them, the stalls and floor reverted almost immediately. The pattern felt like a rule. The kiosk logs compliance before the work, and the bathrooms reset to prove the compliance was false unless you accept the mark. I didn't tell Manny that. I just worked. At home, my hands started smelling like the station even after washing. My girlfriend said the apartment bathroom smelled like disinfectant and old trash. I thought it was on my clothes. Then I noticed a faint residue line along the edge of our sink, in the same shape as the one at the station. I cleaned it and it came back the next morning. I checked the mirror above our sink. There were 3 fingertip swipes in the corner, like someone touched it with damp fingers. I live alone now, so I know it wasn't someone messing with me. I wiped them off. That afternoon they were back, and the ends curved upward. I went into work that night, and the kiosk greeted me with my name on the screen before I was close enough to touch it. It printed a receipt without me doing anything. The timestamp wasn't earlier than my shift, it was earlier than my day. I walked to the restrooms, and both were already dirty in the same pattern, like they hadn't been cleaned in a long time. On the women's mirror, the smile was bigger, stretched wider than the last time, like someone had dragged their fingers farther. I didn't clean. I stood in the doorway and looked, trying to decide what would happen if I just left. My phone buzzed with an email from the staffing agency saying I had missed a required compliance action and my assignment might be terminated. The time on the email was earlier than when I opened it. I went back to the kiosk and picked up the receipt. The initials line was blank. My pen felt heavy in my hand. I initialed it anyway. When I got home, the residue line on my sink was gone. The mirror had the smile. It looked fresh, like it had been made recently. I don't know what the system wants. I only know it can record me doing things I have not done yet, and it can make the same grime return until I follow along. I also know it followed me home the moment I tried to keep the paper. I quit showing up after that, which is easy to say, but not easy to do when you're broke. The staffing agency called and emailed and then stopped. Manny never reached out directly. But the smile log didn't stop. I still find thin receipt paper in my coat pocket sometimes when I come in from outside, even though I don't work there anymore and I don't carry receipts. They're blank, except for the station name and a timestamp that doesn't make sense. I don't initial them. I throw them away. And then my bathroom starts to smell like the station again. And the residue line comes back on the sink, and the mirror gets the same 3 swipes, curling up at the ends. If your blog is still up somewhere, or if anyone remembers it, I want this posted, because I want there to be a record that I tried to say something. I'm not asking for advice from cops or lawyers. I'm saying there is a system at that station that can log compliance before work happens, and the restrooms can revert to a specific dirty state, like a reset. The only thing I know to do is keep my own notes and stop initialing anything I didn't do, but I already initialed a lot of them.